If it feels like no matter how hard you work, you just simply cannot get ahead and that the middle class is just getting crushed, you're not alone. In fact, millions of Americans feel this exact same way today, and there's a reason why. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly why you feel this way and 3 actionable items that you can do right now to get ahead in 2025. One of which that I did recently, and it's going to make a killer return for me and my family in the upcoming years to help us get on that path of financial freedom. And I'll share that at the end of this video, so keep watching. Because either 2025 is going to be a repeat of 2024, or it's going to be one of the best financial years of your entire life, depending on the decisions that you make today. Now, it feels like the middle class has been shrinking for 3 reasons. First reason is that it has. If you were to take the total population of America and split it into 100 individuals, each representing 1% of Americans, and then graph how much money each percent of Americans own, you'll see that the top 1% owns an entire 30% of the total wealth of America. And out of that, the top 0.1%, or 10% of the top 1%, owns 13.5% of the total wealth in 2024, which is almost half of the top 1% as a whole. Now compare that to the bottom 50% of Americans, who collectively as a whole only own 2.5% of the total wealth. That's like if 100 people were fishing and there were 100 fish, and literally half of the fishermen were sharing 2.5 fish collectively among all of them, one person getting a little fin, another getting an eyeball, another getting maybe a small sliver of flesh, all the while a single fisherman is gorging himself on 30 whole fish all by himself. That's pretty ludicrous as far as distribution of wealth, wouldn't you think? Well, how do you even qualify to be one of the top 1% of Americans? You have to make over $787,000 per year. And furthermore, to qualify to be the top 0.1% of all Americans, you have to make over $2.8 million per year. Now, out of all of the people watching this video, I'm guessing about 99% of you don't make that amount of money. Well, don't worry, there's a lot of celebrities around that do make that kind of money, and they're being very sympathetic towards you. Now, one of these is Whoopi Goldberg. Now, forget that she's making $10 million per year, and just listen to her because she's trying to be so sympathetic towards you, because, you know, she's struggling too.
I appreciate that people are having a hard time. Me too. Yeah. I work for a living. If I had all the money in the world, I would not be here.
And Ryan Reynolds, his wife used to be in the working class, or so it claimed. I mean, if you look at her prom video from 2004, you can totally see she's the working class. Though her dad was a director and an actor, and her mom was an actress and a talent manager, but, you know, what do we know? Or maybe the top 1% is really dissociated from reality, and they kind of forgot what the working class is. But that's not the only reason that you feel that the middle class is shrinking. On top of the very wide wealth distribution in America, there's also a thing we call inflation.
While incomes stagnate, the cost of living has risen dramatically over the years. To put it into perspective, the average household income in the US saw just a 16% increase over the last 50 years. In comparison, housing costs increased by 190%, and college tuition shot up by nearly 264% in the same time period.
And as you can imagine, the rich are not feeling inflation like you are. In fact, they're probably not even feeling it at all. But you are, and probably to their amusement. A large contributor of the crushing of the middle class comes from high inflation and wages that don't keep up. So right now, to find out if your wage is keeping up with inflation, go to the CPI inflation calculator and type in your beginning wage when you first started your job. Then put in the month and the year that you began your job, click calculate, and this value should be how much you're making right now to break even. So if your salary today is below this value, then you're actually making less than you did when you first started your job. And that's why I have a hard time calling pay raises pay raises. And this next reason of why you feel the middle class is getting crushed is the biggest issue that's affecting everyone, and you don't even realize it's happening. But before I explain it, I need you to hit that subscribe button below, so that you can get ahead financially in 2025. Now, the third reason of why you're feeling that the middle class is getting crushed is because the middle class does not have the same investment privileges that the top 1% do. Let me explain. If you're in the stock market, you only have access to public stocks. And these public stocks generally give you a 10% increase on your investments if you do it right. But there's a special percentage of Americans called accredited investors. And these individuals also have access to private investments. So why does this matter? Well, because a lot of these private businesses are just starting up, so they have a much higher potential for return. So let me give an example. You have $50,000 invested in the S&P 500, which historically gives you a 10% increase per year. So compounded over 4 years, that $50,000 will give you a return of $23,205, which is a 46% return. While a rich accredited investor buys 10 million shares in a private business that's just starting up at 10 cents per share. So that's $1 million investment. After 4 years, another company shows up and purchases the startup for $1.37 per share. That means the accredited investor is going to get back $13.7 million, which is a 1,270% return in just 4 years. So 1,270% return versus 46%, you can clearly see who has the advantage. And this is a lever that is only available to the rich. Now, of course, when you invest in a private business, there are a few catches. You can't just take the money out whenever you want. And there's higher risks associated with that kind of investment because if the company doesn't take off, you can lose everything. So you can only imagine how important researching the private business would be before you start investing. But despite those challenges, the wealthy continue to invest a large chunk of their portfolio into private investments, which includes private equity, placements, hedge funds, and venture capital. So how do you become an accredited investor so that you can start investing in all these private investments? Well, in simplicity, all you need is $1 million net worth minus your private residence. Or you have to have a single income of over $200,000 per year. Or if you're married, you can have a joint income of $300,000 per year. So this rule was established by the Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC for short. And in the United States, there's about 20 million accredited investor households in the US, or roughly the top 15% of all Americans. So what does this all mean? That means that the massive returns is actually reserved for the wealthy. And that means that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. Now, there is a way around this, which I did recently, and I'll share that with you at the end of this video, so stick around. Now, I don't want this video to be all negative, because there are 3 things that you can start doing today to get ahead financially in 2025. You can get out of debt, you can buy a new car if you do these 3 things correctly. First, you're going to make a mission statement. This first step is more powerful, more significant, more influential than any of the noise that might be going around in your head today or any of the baggage that you might be carrying around with you from the past. This step entails sitting down in a very quiet place of serenity and creating a clear vision for your life and committing to that purpose. And as long as you keep this vision in your mind of where you want to end up and keep that hope alive, you'll eventually land in that destination. Now, my choice of scenery is actually a sunrise or a sunset, where I can see the sun clearly come up or go down, reminding me of the gift of the day and to treasure it. And once you spend enough time and thought on where you want to be in the future and what you want to achieve, write it down and keep it somewhere close, preferably on you. This mission statement, or vision as I like to call it, will lift the fog whenever things get dark so that you can get back on track. Think of the future in terms of years. So you want to look forward in a year, you want to look forward in 5 years, 10 years, and so forth. And then make goals for those years. What do you want to accomplish by those milestones? And then commit to those. This will be so important for the next 2 steps. Now, in setting this vision, remember that you don't have to live within the shadow of your upbringing. So what I mean by this is that just because you were taught to go to college and get a really good job from a corporate and invest in your 401k so that you can retire at the very end of your life to finally have financial freedom, you don't have to live that way. In fact, most of the financial advisors that teach all of that stuff don't even do it themselves. So your vision is not the only thing that you need to do. You need to learn, grow, and develop outside of your comfort zone, and that'll help breathe life into your vision. So this entails reading books, watching educational videos, and surrounding yourself with people who have achieved what you're wanting to achieve. So if you come across a successful person, just act like they're a fountain of knowledge and that you're a sponge trying to soak all that you can in. Introduce yourself, get to know them, ask them questions, and try all you can to learn from them Literally, you have to surround yourself with like-minded people that are success-oriented. Because if you don't, then these other people will continue to fog your vision and continue to create doubt in your mind that you can even achieve what you're trying to. In fact, there's nothing more effective in breaking down those mind-blocking barriers than surrounding yourself with like-minded, successful people that think with a successful mindset. And of course, the opposite is true. If you hate rich people just because they're rich and you push yourself away from them, then you can never learn of their secrets and you can never become acquainted with their ways and become like them. And more times than not, you'll find that they're very open to sharing their secrets with you. And of course, reading a good list of books is another way to get clear insight into how to achieve your goals. And if you want a good list, I actually have a link below of the top billionaire books that you should read. So click on that at the end of this video. Remember that there's a mountain of knowledge out there of how to become financially free, but you've got to know where to find it. So here it is. You're welcome. Now that you have your vision, and now that you have the knowledge to proceed, and you have the people surrounding you that'll support you, you then need to begin your journey of financial freedom. And one of the best ways to do this is to keep your current job that you have right now that's paying for your bills and get a side hustle that's scalable. The goal here is to get enough cash flow coming in so that you can invest it into something that'll grow. And this can be an investment into your own business that you're starting up, or even into more side hustles, or it can even be into real estate or something like that. Remember that money makes money, and if all your money is tied up in bills, then you won't have any extra to invest into the growth of your wealth. And I personally wouldn't choose something that's overly saturated or overly talked about, because there's going to be a lot of people trying to compete in those spaces. Rather, I would recommend trying to find something that people aren't talking about a lot. Now, it takes a lot of research to choose a side hustle that's going to fit for you, because you have strengths that you can monopolize on to find something that works. So I recommend doing a lot of research to find a side hustle that fits you, because otherwise you'll be spinning your gears on a lot of different side hustles, and you'll be constantly going back and forth trying to find the right one for yourself and spending a lot of time. And before you know it, you'll spend a lot of money doing things that just didn't work for you. So don't waste your time. Do a lot of research first and then dial down on one or two of them. Remember that this is going to take a lot of work initially. So just be willing to make that sacrifice. That's just the reality of it. Treat it like you would a flight, right? So when you get on the plane, it takes 20 to 30% of the fuel consumption just to get the plane off the runway. And that's the way it is when you first start your side hustles and begin on this journey of financial freedom. It takes a large consumption of your energy and your time and your money just to get up off that runway. But once you do, then it gets a lot easier. Now, after achieving a good cash flow, you can actually proceed on to let that side hustle replace your current job. Now, as I referenced earlier in this video about private investments and becoming an accredited investor, to do so, there is a way around it. And this is something that I did, so pay attention, because you can actually multiply your gains many times over when you invest properly into a private business. In the SEC's fine print under Rule 504 of Regulation D, companies are allowed to sell up to $10 million in securities to both accredited and non-accredited investors over a 12-month period. Furthermore, under Rule 506 of Regulation D, a startup may include up to 35 non-accredited investors in its family and family round. So both rules work to our favor. The trick is to know the CEO of the startup company, make sure you research the potential of the company and the risks, and then if you feel confident enough, throw in a good chunk. I personally did this by pulling out a good percentage out of my 401k, a move that I generally don't advise, but under the circumstances, I saw the potential for gains to be much more than if I kept it in my 401k, even with the 10% penalty for withdrawing early. And really, there's a few personal exceptions like personal business investments or real estate that I think would be worth pulling out of your 401k. But again, make sure that you're knowledgeable about what you're investing into, the market, and if it has a high likelihood of big returns. Now, you'll notice that out of all of this that I shared with you, none of it is in David Ramsey's program of the 7 steps. It feels like financial experts are telling you to do one thing while they're at the same time doing something else. So if you're wondering why that is, go ahead and click on this next video. Until next time, thank you so much for watching.